What's good, everyone? I'm Brian Sampson coming from Dunking with Wolves with another Brian's Breakdown here. I'm going to take a look at the Minnesota Timberwolves game against the Charlotte Hornets, where Minnesota lost their second consecutive game coming on back-to-back nights, and both, again, to Eastern Conference opponents, which should sound familiar to Timberwolves fans this year, unfortunately. And this was a game where Dwight Howard utterly dominated and bullied around the other Timberwolves defenders, and Karl-Anthony Towns mysteriously disappeared for long stretches of the game, I'd say. So I'm going to take a look at different aspects of the game and break down the film. Before I do that, I'd appreciate if you guys would subscribe to my YouTube channel, give this video the old thumbs up, and follow me on Twitter at BrianSampsonNBA. Well, without further ado, let's dive in. Minnesota ran a lot of the Horns action last night and had a varying degree of success. So I'm going to go ahead and start by highlighting this, as I think they ran it a little bit more frequently than they typically do. So I'm going to start with this first play that came about 3 minutes into the game and resulted in an Andrew Wiggins bucket. I don't believe Horns was even called here. And for those fans who question the leadership on the floor, not having a floor general, Jimmy Butler right here, you can see him point right there at Towns, tell him where to go. He gets the two post players lined up in Horns, and this is Horns right here where Towns and Gibson are on the elbows. So Butler is going to pass it to Gibson, then he's going to cut to the weak side, and he's going to receive a screen from Towns, and then both him and Towns are going to set a screen for Jeff Teague. And so while that's going on, Gibson doesn't think anything's coming of it, so he's going to go over to the other side and have a little two-man game with Andrew Wiggins. So he initiates a dribble handoff, doesn't get a very good screen initially, so he comes back to set another ball screen on Wiggins' man. Wiggins uses that to find the tiniest of cracks, and he pulls up for a jumper and 2 points. Here's another version of Horns, and this results in a different look than last time, as Minnesota is able to get a nice open attempt by Jeff Teague, and boy, do I love those floaters. As a guard myself, those floaters are money. So getting back to the Horns set, you can see here it's in the same formation with Gibson and Towns on the elbow. It's a little bit of a liberal setup this time, as they're not so close to the elbows as before, but the same basic principles are still there. This time Jeff Teague is going to take the dribble off of the screen of Gibson, and he's going to get all the way to the rim to do a nice underhand floater high off the glass and away from Dwight Howard's prying hands. Here's the third option that the Timberwolves ran out of the Horn set last night, and it's a really great illustration of exactly why this motion is so effective and why so many teams run it. As you can see, it will start just like all the other ones have before, with Gibson and Towns up by the elbows, and this time Teague is going to run off the ball screen just like last time, but instead he's going to flip it back to Towns. Towns has the option to shoot there, but he decides his man's too close, so he drives for what should be a dribble handoff to Andrew Wiggins. However, Wiggins and Towns have a great read that Nick Batum is overplaying Wiggins, so he backdoors for the cut, and Towns hits him with a beautiful bounce pass, and Wiggins throws it down for the slam. So now we've seen three really great examples by the Timberwolves of how to run the Horn set, but this is an example of what it looks like when you aren't communicating effectively, and ultimately it falls on Teague to throw up a shot, and a lot of fans blame his shot distribution or him taking bad shots, but this is just part of the responsibility of being the point guard. So the Horn set, he comes off the Towns screen, but both Towns and Gibson roll to the hoop, which just congests everything. You can see all the defenders in there, and so that leaves absolutely nothing. So Teague realizes that instead of forcing it, he backs it back out and decides to take his man one-on-one because there isn't anything else going on. He isn't able to make the shot, but just that's what it looks like when your team isn't communicating effectively. For those of you that watched the Fox Sports North broadcast last night, you'll recognize this play. This is a play that Jim Peterson highlighted and called his windshield wiper action, and it was just a beautiful explanation by Peterson. I won't try to match that. I'm showing this action for a different reason. But before we get into that, just to explain for those of you who may have missed it, Jimmy Butler receives a ball and a dribble handoff from Jeff Teague. He then throws it back to Towns for a dribble handoff, but instead of going across the court, he windshield wipes back, which is kind of how Jim Peterson said he got the name. And he comes back to receive the pass from Teague, and he gets open for the three-point shot and ultimately drains it. So here's one more look at this action, just so we have a really good understanding of exactly how it fooled the defense and how quick it actually is in real time. All right, so Jimmy Butler hit that last shot, right? And the Timberwolves then decide to foul Dwight Howard and send him to the line for 2 free throws. No timeouts were taken. The coach didn't have time to come up with an elaborate plan for defense, but Minnesota decides to run this play one more time to try to catch him off guard. So this is the real reason I'm deciding to highlight this play and show you exactly how smart NBA defenses are, how smart the players are, and how hard it is to score in this league. So Minnesota comes right back to the same play, and Charlotte makes a change. I'm sure their coach deserves credit for this. So instead of fighting through the screens this time, they decide to switch all screens on the perimeter there, and that makes it a lot easier to fight through those ball screens because they're already in defensive position. So this is the reason I just wanted to show exactly how hard it is, and you can hardly ever run the same play twice and have success, as you can see here. This was a night where the Minnesota Timberwolves just didn't have their A game, and unfortunately they weren't able to turn it on in the fourth quarter and come away with the victory when they were outscored by 12 points in that final frame. It's a second consecutive night where they've had fourth quarter woes, which brings us bad memories dating back to last year and even beyond. So hopefully Minnesota can change that after having a nice start in close games earlier in this season. I appreciate if you guys would subscribe to my YouTube channel, give this video the old thumbs up, and follow me on Twitter at BrianSampsonNBA. I hope you guys tune in next time.